We're renting your old room to your brother Cameron, so don't plan on storing anything there when you visit. My father announced over Sunday dinner, carving the roast like he hadn't just carved me out of my childhood home. I reached into my purse, pulled out the deed I'd been carrying for 6 months, and slid it across my grandmother's china with steady hands. That's interesting, considering I bought this house from you last year. Remember, Dad? The coffee mug he'd been reaching for slipped from his fingers, shattering against the hardwood I'd refinished myself. And I wondered if he was finally beginning to understand that his forgetfulness about our transaction was about to cost him everything. My name is Bridget, and I'm 33 years old. Sitting at the dining room table where I'd eaten 18 years of meals as the invisible middle child, watching my parents' faces cycle through confusion, disbelief, and dawning horror, I felt the kind of calm that comes from knowing you've already won a game others didn't know they were playing. What are you talking about? My mother, Linda, set down her fork with deliberate precision. This is our house. We've lived here for 35 years. Lived here, yes, I agreed, buttering a roll from the basket I'd brought because I knew Mom would forget the bread again. Owned it. Not for the past 14 months. Not since Dad came to me desperate about the reverse mortgage you couldn't pay. My younger brother Cameron looked up from his phone for the first time all meal. Wait, what? Reverse mortgage? Oh, did they not mention that? I smiled at my parents. Or the gambling debts. Or the failed business ventures. Or the part where they were 60 days from foreclosure when I stepped in. Bridget, stop being dramatic, Dad blustered, but his voice shook. We had a private arrangement. We had a legal sale, I corrected. Fair market value. Transfer of deed. Filed with the county. You insisted on handling it quietly to avoid embarrassment. Said you'd buy it back within the year once you got back on your feet. I have it all in writing. My older sister Mallory, who'd driven up from the city in her latest BMW, laughed. This is ridiculous. Bridget's a substitute teacher. She couldn't afford a house like this. Substitute teacher, yes, I nodded. Also a freelance curriculum developer. Online tutor. Summer school coordinator. And very, very good at saving money while living in that temporary basement apartment you all thought was so beneath me. The basement apartment we charged you rent for, Cameron added helpfully, the irony finally hitting him. $800 a month for 6 years, I confirmed. Below market rate, you always reminded me, as if I should be grateful to pay to live in an unfinished basement while you turned my childhood room into Mom's craft studio. That money, plus my savings, plus the equity loan I qualified for, more than enough to buy you out when you came begging. Dad stood abruptly, his chair scraping. This is theft. Elder abuse. We'll sue. With what money? I asked calmly. And on what grounds? You're 58, hardly elderly. You were represented by a lawyer. Your golf buddy, remember? Every document was notarized. You spent the money I paid you. How's that boat, by the way? What boat? Mallory demanded. Ask Dad about the can't-miss investment opportunity he put a third of the house money into. Spoiler, it missed. Mom's face had gone pale. But we live here. This is our home. And you're welcome to keep living here, I said. I've been nothing but accommodating. Haven't raised the subject once in 14 months. Haven't charged rent. Haven't changed a thing. Until tonight, when you announced you were renting out part of my property without consulting me. Your property. Mom said it like the words tasted bitter. Check the county records if you don't believe me. I pulled up the website on my phone, showing them the official filing. Bridget M. Connolly, sole owner. Transferred from Harold and Linda Connolly, January 15th of last year. The same day you told me it was just paperwork and family helping family. You manipulated us, Dad accused. Took advantage when we were vulnerable. I saved you from foreclosure, I shot back. What was the alternative? Let the bank take it? Watch you move into some apartment? At least this way you kept your dignity, your address, your image. All I asked in return was basic respect and the promise you'd tell me before making any major changes to the property. Which they just violated, Mallory said slowly, her business degree finally kicking in. By offering to rent to Cameron without asking you. Bingo. I turned to my younger brother. No offense, Cam. This isn't about you. He shrugged, still processing. I mean, I just got laid off anyway. Can't afford rent. They said I could stay free. Of course they did. I laughed, but it wasn't bitter. Just tired. Let me guess. Mallory was too successful to need help. I was too pathetic to deserve any. But Cameron? Golden boy Cameron could have whatever he wanted, including my old room. The one I was never getting back anyway, right? That's not, Mom started. June 2019, I interrupted. You turned my room into your craft studio while I was student teaching. Didn't ask, just announced it at dinner. September 2020, you offered it to Mallory as a home office when she was between apartments. December 2021, it became Dad's exercise room. That lasted about a week. Now it's supposed to be Cameron's. In all that time, did anyone ask where I'd stay when I visited? Or did you all just assume the basement was good enough for Bridget forever? Silence settled over the table like dust over abandoned furniture. You know what the funny thing is? I continued. I wasn't even mad about the room. Kids grow up, parents repurpose space. Normal family evolution. But it was the way you did it. Like I didn't matter enough to include in the conversation. Like my attachment to that space, to any space in this house, was irrelevant. You never said anything, Mallory protested. Would it have mattered? When have any of you ever adjusted your behavior based on my feelings? I looked around the table. Mallory, remember when you announced you were getting married at my college graduation dinner? Mom and Dad, remember scheduling your vow renewal for the same weekend as my teaching award ceremony? Cameron, remember borrowing my car for a few days that turned into 6 months? Those were different, Mom began. They were exactly the same. This family operates on the assumption that Bridget will adapt, adjust, accommodate. Well, surprise, Bridget adapted by buying the house. Bridget adjusted by keeping quiet for over a year. Bridget accommodated by not charging you rent. But Bridget draws the line at you literally giving away parts of my property without asking. Dad's face had gone from pale to red. What do you want? Money. An apology. I want you to understand that actions have consequences. You sold me this house because you had no other option. I bought it because I couldn't watch you lose everything, even after years of being treated like a second-class family member. But that kindness doesn't extend to letting you make unilateral decisions about my property. So what happens now? Cameron asked, genuinely curious rather than challenging. Now, you all have a choice. I pulled out a folder I'd prepared months ago, hoping I'd never need it. Option 1, sign a formal lease. Market rent, which is about $3,200 a month for a house this size in this neighborhood. Security deposit, first and last month up front. Standard tenant rights and restrictions. $3,000, Mom gasped. Option 2, I continued. Smaller lease for just the main floor. You convert the basement apartment into a proper unit. Pay rent on the upstairs. About $2,200, utilities split proportionally. This is insane, Mallory said. You can't charge our parents rent. Option 3, I said, ignoring her. I put the house on the market. Current estimate is $450,000. After capital gains and fees, I'd clear enough to buy a nice condo downtown and have a solid investment portfolio. You'd have 60 days to relocate. You wouldn't, Mom whispered. I wouldn't want to, I corrected. But I will have forced. You created this situation by forgetting that beneath the family dynamics, there's a legal reality. You sold me this house. I own it. That comes with rights you can't just ignore because it's inconvenient. There has to be another way, Dad said, desperation creeping in. There is. Option 4. I sat back. We create a family trust. The house goes into it, protecting everyone's interests. But it requires something you've never given me, equal voice. Every decision about the property goes through all of us. No more unilateral room assignments. No more treating me like the family doormat. No more pretending I'm somehow worth less than my siblings. That's all you want? Cameron asked. Respect. That's all I've ever wanted. The house was just insurance. Proof that I matter as much as anyone else in this family. But even owning the roof over your heads wasn't enough to get basic consideration, was it? You were still ready to rent out my old room without a word. Mallory had been unusually quiet. Finally, she spoke. The craft supplies in your old room. The exercise equipment. The desk. Were those? All mine, I confirmed. Every improvement in that room. The built-in shelves, the reading nook, the window seat. I did those the summer before college, thinking I'd always have a place to come home to. Silly me. We didn't know, Mom said weakly. Because you didn't ask. Just like you didn't ask if I could afford the basement rent while paying off student loans. Didn't ask how I managed to save enough for a down payment. Didn't ask why I had property lawyers on speed dial when Dad came knocking that night 14 months ago. That night, Dad said slowly. You were prepared. You knew we were in trouble. I knew the signs. The letters you tried to hide. The calls you took in the garage. The way Mom started selling her jewelry. I'd been saving for 3 years, waiting. Not hoping you'd fail. Hoping you'd finally see me as someone who could help. When you came to me, I thought finally I'd be more than background noise. But we sold to you, he protested. We trusted you. You sold to me because the alternative was losing everything to strangers. And the second you had the money, I became invisible again. Until tonight, when you remembered I existed just long enough to dismiss me one more time. So what do we do? Mom asked, tears finally starting. You choose. But first, Cameron, about that job loss. I know 3 schools looking for long-term substitutes. Pays decent, could lead to full-time. I'll send you the contacts if you're interested. He blinked. You'd help me after? You're my brother. Being frustrated with family dynamics doesn't mean I don't care. It just means I'm done being the only one who does. I stood, leaving the folder on the table. Take a week. Talk it through. Decide what matters more, your pride or your home. But whatever you decide, understand this. I'm not the Bridget who lived in the basement anymore. I'm the Bridget who owns the house. And that Bridget expects to be treated accordingly. Where are you going? Mallory asked. My apartment. Oh, did I not mention? I've had my own place for 6 months. Nice little spot downtown, close to the schools where I work. The basement's been empty this whole time. I just came for dinners because I thought family meant showing up. But if you don't live here, Cameron started. Why keep the house? I finished. Because despite everything, I love you all. Because this is where we grew up. Because I kept hoping that owning it might finally make me visible. Clearly, I was wrong about that last part. I headed for the door, then paused. Dad, that coffee mug you dropped? It was from my college graduation. The one you missed because of Cameron's baseball tournament. I gave one to each of you. Mine's the only one still in the cupboard. Funny how some things break, and others just get forgotten. Outside, the October air was crisp with possibility. My car, fully paid for, in my name, waited in the driveway I'd sealed last summer while they complained about the inconvenience. My phone buzzed before I reached the street. Mallory, we need to talk. All of us. Properly this time. Then Cameron, thanks for the job leads. And for not throwing us out. Mom, please come back. We have so much to discuss. Nothing from Dad yet. He'd need more time to process that his middle daughter had outmaneuvered him. That the child he'd overlooked had been 3 steps ahead for over a year. I sat in my car for a moment, looking at the house I'd saved. The shutters I'd painted, the garden I'd maintained, the home I'd preserved for a family that barely noticed me. They had a week to decide. Lease, sale, or trust. Business, separation, or actual family. For 33 years, I'd accepted whatever space they gave me, literal and metaphorical. Now they'd learn what it felt like to wait for someone else's decision about where they could call home. The difference was I'd given them options, which was more than they'd ever given me.